Let's talk about Oregon's defensive coordinator because he's going to be back on the field next week. It's really exciting as I tape this show 9 days away as you're listening, 8 or maybe even 7 days away from a brand new Oregon football game. Cannot wait. Kenyon Varner 3027. I presume you're not the actual guy. That'd be cool. Spencer, question for you. The other day you posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, how much faith do us Duck fans have in Tosh Lupoi? And then you posted how much faith do we have in Will Stein? Well, looking at the comments on both posts, it's fair to assess that Duck fans aren't too hyped on Tosh. What's your overall comment on that? And do you believe Tosh will step up in big games this year? Do you think Dan will replace him if he does a bad job? So, interestingly enough, this thought just occurred to me. Tosh Lupoi is a victim of the same reality that preseason rankings provide in college football. When he came over to be Oregon's defensive coordinator in 2022, he hadn't been a defensive coordinator in a while. He had mostly, I think, defensive line jobs in the NFL. And when he was last to DC at Alabama, he was relieved of play calling duties by Nick Saban as the season progressed. Now, I believe that Alabama team went on to make the national championship game. They gave a bunch of points to Clemson, and then Tosh Lupoi left Alabama. Pretty sure that was the career timeline there. Something like that. So when he came to Oregon, I pointed that out. Plenty of other people pointed that out. It's readily available information that you can go and find. So I think what has happened to an extent is when you have that preconceived notion, Tosh Lupoi is not a good defensive play caller because Nick Saban, took the duties away from him while in Tuscaloosa, and he hasn't been at DC for a while. I think you're more inclined to react negatively when certain performances are not good. Now, I'm not in the camp that some Duck fans are, which is Tosh is going to have to go. He's not the long-term option. He's not good enough for this, that, and the other thing. I see the concern. I see the possibility of that happening. I have a little bit more faith in him than some of you out there, not all. And that's rooted in the fact that I've watched Oregon's defense get better and make fewer mistakes and do several things better in addition to the strong recruiting, which has been there the whole time, year after year after year. Oregon's points per game average has gone down each year. Oregon has had better overall defensive performances each successive year. I was disappointed by 2022. I said it at the time. I stand by that. I thought Lupoi and Lanning should have been able to come in and make that defense that was certainly not nearly as talented as the one that was on the field last year or that even, frankly, will take the field this year for the Ducks. Schematically, they should have been better. No doubt about it. I think that is a completely fair criticism. But when you go into games thinking, well, Tosh isn't any good at DC, whenever a big play happens, it sticks in your brain a lot harder. So I do look at Tosh Lupoi and say, between him and Will Stein, I think Stein overall has been better. Neither guy was good in the Rose Bowl. There's no way around that. One guy was good in the Big Ten championship game, that being Will Stein. But when the biggest criticism you have of Tosh Lupoi as Oregon's defensive coordinator, and he's still the play caller, when your biggest criticism of him at this point is against playoff teams, he gives up too many points, that's a fair criticism to throw at someone. But that's also, I think, led to a lot of overlooking of the good things he has done with the defense and how much it has improved. And therefore, you have to conclude how much he has improved as a DC. So I give him more credit than that. There are more credit than those who think he's just not going to be the answer. It's not any good. This is all bet. Can he just be a recruiting specialist? No, I've seen progress. This is definitely going to be a year where you get some solid evaluation because he's incorporating so much young talent onto that side of the ball. But I don't think there's any chance after this season, unless the defense is atrocious, I mean, really bad and is the reason Oregon goes 8-4, that would have to be where Oregon's season winds up and the defense being the reason for Dan Lanning to make a change. So Benny also sent this one in. SSA, if Stanford's defense struggles this season, newsflash, Stanford's whole team is going to struggle this season. Could Tosh Lupoi consider leaving Oregon for Stanford, giving his deep Bay Area De La Salle ties? As always, appreciate what you do from out here in Singapore. Singapore, Locked On Ducks International. That's awesome. So, and you've sent in questions before, Benny. I didn't forget that you were there. I just, every time you do, and you say, oh, I'm out here in Singapore, like, oh, that's cool. The internet can do some really cool things. So, would he go down to Stanford? I think the only way he'd wind up being Stanford's DC one day, I get the Bay Area ties, that'd be if Dan Lanning fires him. So, tying it back to the first question, you know, what's my scale of agreement on Tosh Lupoi not being Oregon's defensive coordinator in 2026? 2. I think that's around a 2. I think the teams that Oregon's going to face this year, he'll do enough. He could, you know, warm up his seat going into 2026. It would have to be a pretty catastrophic fall off for him to, you know, not be the DC going into next season. Maybe they'd hire from outside. Maybe they'd promote Chris Hampton. But no, I think Tosh Lupoi is going to be here for at least 2 more years as Oregon's defensive coordinator. Willie sends this one in. Spencer, I asked this last year, but what's your over-under on how many times we see a different quarterback in the game other than the starter, assuming Dante Moore? I'm setting the line at 2.5. 2.5 for a backup to get in the game at all. We saw a backup against, I think, UCLA last year, certainly Michigan State, not Idaho. Hopefully next Saturday is the first one. 2.5. 2.5. That's a really good over-under, Willie. I feel like I'm answering an Oregon trivia question right now. That comes later on today's show. 2.5. Certainly the Montana State game, you should see another quarterback. I mean, Northwestern, maybe? But road game, 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff? I don't know. Yeah, let me go. I don't think the Wisconsin game will get out of hand. They'll be better. Minnesota's solid. I don't think you'll do it against USC. I don't think you'll do it against Washington on the road, nor Iowa. Obviously, well, maybe the Penn State game's interesting. What if it all goes wrong for Oregon? It spirals out of control, and Austin Novosad goes in for a different reason other than Oregon comfortably has the game in hand. I'm going to take under 2.5. I'm going to take under 2.5. I would take over 1.5, obviously. So I think it'll be 2. But, oh gosh, but the Oregon State game is in there too. Like that one could, I don't think it will. I think Oregon State's an improved team, as I talked about earlier this week. But is that possible? Sure. Indiana? I don't think so. Signetti's too good of a coach. Yeah, I'll take under 2.5. That's a good one. That was a good one, Willie.